Aloha and happy Buddha Day. I am Brennan Gallardo together with my mom Darcy Asakura, who we will serve as your co-MCs for today's celebration. We are Sangha members from Konohongonji Buddhist Temple. We are happy to welcome you all to this celebration both in person and as well online. A big mahalo for your attendance. As a reminder to everyone, please take this time to silence or turn off your cell phones. Thank you. For those of you online, various parts of the program will be shown on your screen. This service is being recorded, so you are welcome to leave your camera on or off, you choose. However, please remember to keep your mics on mute for the duration of the program. We will begin our service with the ringing of the temple bell. The sounding of the bell is an opportunity to settle our hearts and minds in preparing for hearing the Dharma.
Buddha Day celebrates the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, the one who would become Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha who is revered by Buddhists of all traditions as a great teacher who first turned the wheel of Dharma for the liberation of all beings. Known as Hanamatsuri, or Flower Festival in Japanese, this celebration is also known as Kanbutse-e, or gathering for bathing the Buddha, which refers to the ritual of pouring sweet tea over a statue of the baby Buddha. The pouring of the tea represents the gentle rain perfumed by flower petals that is said to have fallen in Lumbini Garden when Siddhartha was born. Hanamatsuri is a memorable occasion because of the beautifully decorated flower pavilion or hanamiro used to shelter the statue of the baby Buddha. The appearance of the Buddha in the world is an extremely rare event, and therefore, the era in which we live is auspicious for receiving the Dharma. We are grateful for this remarkable opportunity to receive the Buddha's teaching over 2,500 years after his birth. Today's service is being sponsored by the Hawaii Island chapter of the Hawaii Association of International Buddhists, which I will refer to as HAIB. HAIB's beginnings extend back to at least 50 years to the early 1970s. Today, and for the last 30 years, HAIB is and has been an active organization of individuals with diverse Buddhist backgrounds coming together to get to know one another, to learn the rich and varied practices of our different Buddhist traditions, and to promote the cultivation of wisdom and compassion.
Mrs. Barbara Bowles, president of the Fukuji Soto Mission, will now offer words of welcome.
Aloha and warm welcome to the 13th annual Buddha Day celebration. I'm so happy to see so many of you attending in person and by Zoom. We get to experience traditions other than our own, and yet are all gathered here to honor the birth of our great teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. As in the past, this event is hosted by the Hawaiian Island chapter of the Hawaii Association of International Buddhists and held here at Konahongwanji Buddhist Temple. As you heard, I'm Barbara Shoshin Bose from Daifukuji. I've attended many of these events and always enriched and inspired to follow our path more closely. There is a wonderful program planned for you today. Please sit back, open your hearts and mind, and enjoy what follows. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be well in body and mind. May all beings be safe, and may all beings be at ease and at peace. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowles. We will begin our celebration with a moment of silent meditation.
Please rise as Reverend Jiko Nakare of Daifukuji Soto Mission will lead us in the Vandana and Tea Sarana, in which we praise the Buddha and take refuge in the three treasures of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Please chant both the Pali and English parts together with Reverend Jiko. Words can be found in your program and on the screen.
You may be seated.
We will now begin the tea pouring ceremony by ministers and/or representatives of various Buddhist sanghas. Reverend Masaaki Koga Miyazaki of the Kona Koyo-san Dai Shiji Mission will lead us in the chanting of the Kanmokuge Sutra during the tea pouring ceremony. Translated, the verses of the sutra teaches us to honor Shakyamuni Buddha through the pouring of sweet tea. Please refer to the translation which is printed on the back of your program.
Please feel free to join in the chanting of the sutra. Words can be found on the insert in your program and on the screen. As I call names of the various Buddhist sanghas will be the representatives, please come forward to pour sweet tea. Amida, Hawaii.
Shakyamuni Buddha
Daifukuji Soto Mission.
Gotanjo Kammokuge Rakon Kammokujo Nyorai Joji Yogon Kudokuju Goyokuju Yoryorikun Dojo Nyorai Jojin
Honoka'a Honwanji Mission. Kona Honwanji Mission.
Kona Koyo-san Dai Shiji Mission. Koyo-san Shingon Mission of Hawaii. Nechung Dorje Dryang Ling, Hawaii Wood Valley Temple. Seicho no Ie. Tai Soji Soto Mission. Sri Ratna Buddhist Community. Reverend Jigaku Takenouchi of Tai Shoji Soto Mission will now introduce our honored guest speaker, Reverend Paul Ananda Normann, Executive Director of the Neighborhood Place of Puna and Minister of Amida, Hawaii Community.
Good morning, everyone. It is my great pleasure today to introduce a friend and mentor over from the Hilo side. The Reverend Ananda Paul Normann is the Executive Director of the Neighborhood Place of Puna, and he, in our community, shows us the way of compassion through his great deeds. So please let us all welcome and listen to Reverend Ananda's message today on this Buddha Day.
So aloha and good morning. I think it's morning. It's been a while. We got up early to come across. It was beautiful this morning, coming across the mountain. Yes, so it was very sweet. This sitting up there in the front row, and the family came up from Wood Valley, and the mom helps her son pour the tea over the baby Buddha. And I had just a moment there, and I'm thinking, I'm kind of visualizing the Buddha's mother, the Buddha's foster mother, doing the same kind of thing, helping the baby Buddha also learn the ceremonies and the rituals and so forth of where he grew up in his life as a child. So, let me introduce myself a little bit. So I'm, sorry, I got this box under here to help our MC. You gotta pull it back out when you're finished. So, Reverend Ananda, I am the minister for the Amida, Hawaii, which is a small local Buddhist temple here in Hawaii that arises.
I was so happy to see you, I forgot.
Thank you. Okay, now ceremony. Okay, we got all the ceremony done. Okay. So a small temple on in Hawaii Island. We've been around 18, 19 years now. And before that, I was the founder and head minister for Lotus Lake, Hawaii in Tallahassee, Florida. The tradition we are in, that I'm in, is a Pure Land tradition, a Pure Land inspired tradition. So like many people like me who grew up in the West, who grew up on the continent, we did not have a family tradition of Buddhism. When I was growing up, there just wasn't a lot of Buddhism, so we studied with who we could study with. So I've studied in several traditions, practiced very deeply in several traditions. My root teacher is actually a Zen teacher, and it was later in life after I had matured in my practice and started my ministry that I actually looked around and started to associate with and become involved with a Pure Land inspired tradition. And primarily that is, for me, because we're talking about engaged Buddhism, right? And this is pretty much my whole jam, is engaged Buddhism. Because what I was looking at is, after years and years and years of doing deep contemplative practice, I was looking for a way to give back, to begin to take these teachings, these precious teachings, which I had spent so much of my life studying, and start to practice them in a meaningful way in the world. And so I came across this Pure Land inspired tradition out of England, started practicing with them, and that has been as hard. I had to think about it. I think it's been well over 20 years now that I've been with that tradition. I was with that tradition, and then more recently, I moved to a sister organization, so the Bright Earth Buddhist Order, and that's mainly because, even though it's pretty much the same tradition, it is a much more engaged temple and group of people, and I really feel that being engaged, expressing the Buddhism in the world, Buddha Dharma in the world, is super important. So that's a little bit about me. And I wanted to start really today digging into this talk, into this presentation, not with a quote from the Buddha, but I actually wanted to start with a quote from a Gandhi quote. And in one of his writings, Mahatma Gandhi, in this book, this set of writings called Hind Swaraj, which is Hindu self-rule, he is being challenged or being asked how the English got control of India. And he says, "The English have not taken India. We have given it to them. They are not in India because of their strength, but because we keep them." And that is just phenomenally profound. It's a really Buddhist thing to say, and I think it's something that the Buddha, the historical Buddha, would have understood immediately. And because it makes us look at ourselves both individually and collectively and ask what persists in our communities, in our house, really, let's just even smaller. What continues to persist in our own homes, in our local communities, in our churches and temples, and, because we keep it, because we continue to feed it, because we continue to nurture it. And from a Buddhist perspective, we know the response, right? If you're not happy with your current conditions, which arise, from past actions, we need to change ourselves. We need to change our conduct. We need to change the things that we do in the world. And I think for us today, as Buddhists practicing, 2,600 plus years after the birth of the Buddha, it's hard for us to remember that at the time Shakyamuni Buddha lived, he was practicing what we today would call engaged Buddhism. Shakyamuni was engaged. And of course, it's hard to remember that when we're here and we're having this beautiful ceremony, which is super important because, these ceremonies and rituals that we do remind us who we are. They help us understand the world. They help us know our place and where we can find refuge and wisdom and have some shared identity. But also, we forget, sometimes we forget, we take for granted how radical the Buddha was, how radical Shakyamuni Buddha was, right? So the Buddha, the baby Buddha, Gautama, the potential Buddha, we should say, was born in Lumbini. And so first of all, the thing to remember about that is that there is a lot of mythology and story about this. Depending on your tradition, the Buddha gets up, takes generally 7 steps, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, sometimes he spouts off an entire Dharma discourse, sometimes he just makes a proclamation, but it's pretty spectacular. But, basically saying, this is it, I'm going to become the awakened one, the supremely awakened one, the Bhagavat, and, flowers fall from the sky, all is wonderful, blah, blah, blah. And what we forget is that his mom, his birth mom, poor Queen Maya, is basically, the birth has done something to her, and we know she's about to die. So she dies, in tradition, about 7 days later. So at the same time, we have this wonderful, beautiful birth. It is still shaped by the dukkha, the reality, the suffering of the sacrifice that Queen Maya makes to bring the baby Buddha, the potential Buddha, into the world. And of course, later on, the monks are going to reshape it and say, oh, she just took this birth to give birth. She just took a human form and gave birth to the baby Buddha, and that was all she was supposed to do. That was her reason, and so she could die after that. Monks, what do they know? Anyway, so, I think the thing to remember, the important thing, though, to remember is that even though we talk about the birth of Gautama, the Buddha to be, the Buddha, it really is, we don't know if we were living at that time, if we happened to be around at that time, we did not know that this little child was going to become Shakyamuni. There is only the potential for it. And when we come to it from that perspective, we begin to realize all of the amazing risk and risky things that the young Gautama and then later the Shakyamuni Buddha did, right? Because from our perspective, it's all resolved. We all know the story. It all turns out great. He becomes the Buddha. He gets, preaches for 40 years. The Sangha develops, and then here we are, right? But, instead, for him, for the Gautama, it's all unknown. And, you've got to think about if we start to move forward in his life. So first of all, of course, he's being raised by his stepmother, who is a consort of the king. So maybe that impacted him, maybe not. But so his kind of first real reality of his birth mother dying. And then as we move forward in time, when we come to the great leave taking, we have the story, we have this mythology around it, and, how it's kind of preordained. But I mean, think about what it took for the heir apparent, the prince, the one who's going to inherit the throne, who's been raised in luxury and security, surrounded by people who love and adore him, with wealth and all the comforts that you could have at that time, to decide in response to seeing hardship and suffering, which maybe he has not seen, right? That he's lived in privilege, and all of a sudden he comes face to face with hardship. And he says, I'm going to leave the kingdom behind, and I'm going to go out in the world. And that's phenomenally risky. And there's no guarantee that it was going to turn out well, because not only was there the hardship of losing all of his luxury and comforts, even though we know the king was spying on him, right? And kind of there's a little buffer, and the gods were watching and so forth in the mythology. But there was no guarantee, and he had political enemies. So very likely that something bad could have befallen him. And then later, he continues. He goes and he starts to follow different teachers. He goes to different temples. He practices their practices. And finally, at the end of those practices, he's like, nope, this isn't the right path. And he goes down the road. He goes to the next temple, next teacher, studies it. He's like, nope, this isn't the right path. And he keeps doing that and keeps doing it. Imagine that. That is radical, right? To not to accept just the teachings that are acceptable. That is radical, right? And that's not to say y'all should all go run around and leave the temple. Don't do that. But I'm just saying to have that level of confidence or vision or faith or drive or whatever it was to keep saying, no, there's more. I need to keep looking. I need to find the answer. And then finally to decide, hey, nobody has the answer. I need to find it myself, right? No teacher is going to give me. And then to go and basically leave his last friends and go and do this very intensive practice with the faith that either you're going to whatever figure it out or you're going to die. And he does that, right? And fortunately, it turned out well. And then, but he doesn't stop there. And then he's kind of, after his awakening, we know he's in this very, blissful, pure state. Just he's completely awake and in meditative, whatever it is experience, but a very, 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 very elevated state. And he decides, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to start my own, he doesn't call it this, but I'm going to start my own religion. I'm going to start my own tradition. I'm going to go out and I have the audacity to say, I have something valuable and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start teaching. And he does. And, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at all these very esteemed ministers. It's a double-edged sword being the head of a religion, right? Being the head of a temple, right? It's not, we want to look at it as if everything was perfect. Everything, as we said, we would say here, rainbows and unicorns, right? But it wasn't, right? We know, if you read the Pali text, we know that there was a lot of drama in the Sangha, right? There was a lot of mischief. There were people who were jealous of the Buddha. There were Shakyamuni. There were people who were jealous of the Buddha. There were people political enemies who were trying actively to work against him. There were factions. There was just all the normal stuff that happens in a community. And yet he persevered and he did that. And more importantly, he decided that his tradition wasn't going to be a tradition of recluses. It wasn't going to be a tradition just for the elites, the spiritual elites. It was actually going to go out into the world and teach the common people. And it was going to accept all levels of people. So sure, I'm sure this made him really popular. Sure, there were the wealthy sons of the local aristocracy who were coming to him for refuge. Another reason he wasn't liked. But also common people. And imagine that here's this person who in a very stratified society comes into the religious order the day before your rich son shows up to join the order, and that person who is from the very bottom of the social hierarchy is all of a sudden higher ranked than you. That is radical. And then he also, with a little convincing, let's be honest, he also ordained women. Phenomenally radical, right? Women, I don't need to tell all of you, the situation for women in India at that time was not great, to say the least, especially if you didn't have means, and he offered women refuge, right? And we know that so not only did he personally do it, but he was sending his monks out into the world to engage with the common people, and then they would come back once a year or gather once a year for the rains retreat. But the rest of the year, they're out. They're out teaching. We know later that the monks became, they were known for their skill in medicine. They were literate, so they could help with anything that needed literacy. And we know that they also often advised, the Buddha himself often advised on financial and political matters. So the Buddha himself and the early order were responding to the needs of the community. They were engaged. They were responding they were taking the wisdom that they had from the practice and applying it in the world. And for me, I find that phenomenally inspiring, right? To know that the Buddha was out there taking risks. Imagine what it would have been like if there was social media, right? Imagine how much the Buddha would be being run down, right? By other schools who are competing with him for students, by people who didn't like him being disruptive to the social order, because basically the Buddha said, you don't need to do all these rituals that are making the priestly class rich. You can just come and practice with me. I'll be your refuge. I can show you the Dharma. I can show you the path. That would have, that stirred people up. So, again, the Buddha was engaged. And so when we talk about engagement, what is engagement? What is engaged Buddhism? And it is applying the Buddha Dharma of wisdom and compassion in our response to contemporary systems of structural violence and social injustice. Right? So again, engaged Buddhism is applying the Buddha Dharma of wisdom and compassion in a response to contemporary systems of structural violence and social injustice. It is applying the Dharma to address the underlying human systems that create or perpetuate unnecessary suffering and hardship. Right? So we know fundamental teaching of Buddhism. Life is hard. There's friction. There's suffering. A lot of it, it's just part of the package. You get a human body, you suffer. But there's also a tremendous amount of suffering that is perpetuated by broken systems that deprive individuals or communities of fundamental resources. And we know that some of the pioneers of engaged Buddhism, like Thich Nhat Hanh, were responding to the suffering of their community wrought by larger systems of violence. So Thich Nhat Hanh specifically responding as a young Buddhist and his Buddhist brothers, his monk brothers, responding to the war in Vietnam through very courageous and radical action to bring young doctors into the field of battle to help these people who are suffering. Right? We have on this very island a woman who was part of that movement, and it's just inspiring and to hear her and also to learn about how much risk they were taking. And of course, another one, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who had to respond to the Cultural Revolution, the invasion by Mao Zedong and the Chinese army into Tibet, relocate his people, and basically rebuild the entire culture of Tibetan culture and Tibetan Buddhism outside of Tibet. Phenomenal, super creative, phenomenal, a phenomenal model of nonviolence. And Dr. Ambedkar. So Dr. Ambedkar, for those of you who don't know, was a Dalit untouchable in India. He benefited tremendously from the English occupation, got an education, ended up being one of the individuals who was responsible for writing the new Indian Constitution post English rule. And he tried to find a place for the untouchable. So a little context, so in traditional Hindu tradition, there are 4 primary classes, and then there's a class that is untouchable, is below. And he tried to find a place, and there was no place for untouchables in the Hindu hierarchy. And so he decided, well, he looked around, he's like, Buddhism offers a way out. And he started, it's amazing. So, Theravada Buddhism, very, very traditional. He goes and he gets ordained, he takes refuge in front of, some phenomenal mass of untouchables who have arrived. He takes refuge, and then he turns around and he gives refuge to the tens of thousands of untouchables that are there, effectively removing them from the oppression of the Hindu caste system. I mean, that is gutsy, right? I mean, imagine, you're not a Buddhist. You invite the monks, like, hey, I'd like to ordain, blah, blah, blah. The monks come, in all their tradition, and you can imagine it. And they ordain him, and then he's like, okay, thank you, I got this. Not ordained, sorry. He takes refuge, he's like, I got this. I can now give refuge to everybody else. That's a phenomenally gutsy move to do, right? And he did that, right? For quite a bit of time, he died very shortly thereafter, they would have these massive refuge ceremonies to ordain the untouchables. And in fact, one of the largest growing populations of Buddhists in the world is the untouchable, the Dalit community in India. So, what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with Neighborhood Place of Pune? What does this have to do with the work I have to do? So I apologize, I've been talking a lot lately, so not just here, but my voice is a little rough. So I run this nonprofit. I'm very fortunate to run this nonprofit called Neighborhood Place of Pune. And for me, Neighborhood Place of Pune is where I bring the Buddha Dharma into the world, right? And where I try to embody as best I can, imperfectly, the wisdom and compassion that I have been able to cultivate through my own practice and through the teachings of the Buddha. And the way we work, the way the organization, what makes, I think, Neighborhood Place of Pune very unique in the way that it provides services is, first of all, it's very person-centered, right? We are very focused on responding to the needs of the individuals in the community, right? So usually our first move is we go into the community and we listen. And we look and we're like, what's needed? What are the gaps? Who are the people who are suffering and who are not getting served? And then we think, okay, what can we do? Can we do anything? What can we do? Who can we maybe find who could help? And we begin to respond. And through this approach, we have responded to several natural disasters. I mean, I don't know if you know, Pune seems to be on the cutting edge of natural disasters. We've had a few hurricanes, we've had a few eruptions, we've been on the front edge of doing that, helping the community coordinate a response. We are also very focused right now on helping our community respond to and solve homelessness, right? Which is a huge issue. It's not just an issue here, it's a huge issue across the nation, right? Because we believe that our community is stronger, is better if everybody has housing, especially our young children, especially our kapuna, especially our teenagers. And we also know as Buddhists that the fundamental act of Buddhism, of a Buddhist, is taking refuge. And the fundamental act of Buddhist temples is offering refuge. So the question is, how do we, as a organization, how do I, at Neighborhood Place, create a place of refuge? And I think for me, yes, we have the teachings of wisdom and compassion, right? And we can do, Buddhism is so amazingly powerful, has such great tools for understanding reality, getting beyond our self-clinging, our ignorance, and to see the non-dual reality, right? And for cultivating compassion, having the self-reflection to have wisdom, right? To have the wisdom to see how best to help. But for me, fundamentally, the teaching that we can offer, we as Buddhists can offer in response to suffering in the world, to engaging in real ways, is refuge. How do we offer refuge? How do we become refuges? And with that in mind, I really want to share, I want to kind of wrap up, share by sharing this last teaching, which I really find a lot of inspiration from. This is actually from the longer Pure Land Sutra. And the version I use is kind of poetic, so I had to go back and look like at the official version, make sure it was in there and we hadn't like taken a bunch of liberties. It is. So, and it is in there, and in this, Shakyamuni is describing for Ananda, or helping Ananda see, understand the Pure Land, Amita's Pure Land. And of course, the Pure Land is filled with many innumerable beings and so forth. And in there he says, and you see around you all of the Shravakas, all of the hearers. So many of us, depending on what your Buddhism is, people might run down Shravakas, whatever. This is the hearer. You hear the teaching and you implement it. Beautiful. You hear the teaching, you implement it. And he looks around, you see all those mini Shravakas, they each have a field of merit, an aura of awakening that is 1 fathom in width. One that expands out from them 1 fathom. Does anybody know how long a fathom is? No, no Googling. Okay, so I'm going to show. So a fathom is 6 feet or approximately this distance. So the Shravakas, the hearers, hear the teachings, and their aura of awakening, their merit fields extends out 1 hug. Okay, really? I mean, really, it's 1 hug out, right? So each of us, we're here. We're here. The Buddha is here. We're hearing the teachings. You can cultivate a merit field of 1 hug, right? And then the teaching in the sutra, it goes on, and then he takes this huge leap, and he's like, oh, and then the light of bodhisattvas, because you know they're better, bodhisattvas stretches out 100 leagues, 300 miles, if you want to know, right? So it's 300 miles. And I'm like, okay, that's a big leap. So in my mind, the way I would interpret this is this shorthand, is that, of course, there are practitioners who have a field of merit, right? And we field of merit, it doesn't mean you have to be perfectly enlightened, right? This is the merit that you have cultivated, the calmness, the good nature, the joy, the solidness you have as a being that extends out. And when someone's in your presence, they feel it, right? Sometimes even when you can't feel it, they feel it. So I like to imagine that if we actually had the longer, a little bit more text in there, that what really is going on is that there are innumerable beings, bodhisattva, whatever we want to call them, practitioners, who have merit fields of all different sizes, right? So some of it, we got 1 hug. Some of it's 2 hugs, right? Some of it, it's like, you know, it's a little bubble. It's maybe about as big as this room. Some of it's bigger, right? And remember that the field of merit isn't necessarily just distance. It's your field of influence, your merit field of the people that are in your life and around you and who you can influence and who somehow, when they come in contact with you, find peace, find joy, find relief from some kind of suffering. And so the question I ask, again, for ourselves as individual practitioners, for ourselves as families, for ourselves as a community, how big is our field of merit? How do we create the safe space so people can find relief, have their suffering alleviated in some little way? You know, whether we can address their immediate needs. So some people brought diapers, we can address immediate need. Maybe they need food, maybe we can address that. Maybe we can't. Sometimes people come to us for help, and all we can do is listen and honor them and respect them, right? But that's something. But the most important thing, I think, for engaged Buddhism is that we have to do something. We have to manifest and express the refuge to the world. We have to offer refuge to the world. And I think that is a gift that we as Buddhists can offer. So, mahalo. May you all be filled with loving kindness. May you all be well. May you all be peaceful and ease. May you all be happy. Namo Mibu, Namo Mibu.
Thank you, Reverend Norman, for your most interesting message. Reverend Blaine Higa of Konohongonji Buddhist Temple will lead us in the unison reading of the vow of humankind. Words can be found on your program and on the screen. Please join him in reciting the words out loud.
The vow of humankind. calm and composed, awakening to our true self, practicing ardently our compassion, making full use of our abilities according to our respective vocations, discerning suffering both individual and social and its causes, recognizing the right course for history to proceed. Let us join hands as kin beyond the differences of race, nation, and class, and with love and compassion, we vow to bring to realization humankind's deep desire for liberation by making every effort to create a world which is peaceful and joyous.
Thank you, Reverend Higa. We will now have several group presentations. First, we will be singing the Gatha Softly Blew the Breezes by Sangha, which means all of us. Organist Lauren Tanimoto will accompany the singing, so please sing out loud. Words can be found on the insert and in your program and on the screen. Please rise. Well done, everyone. You may be seated.
Next will be a song entitled The Three Refugees by Dharma, Keiki, Families and Friends. This song was composed by Buddhist singer and songwriter Betsy Rose. Dharma Keiki, a program which offers Buddhist teaching for children, is offered both in person and via Zoom at Daifukuji Soto Mission. It is open to families everywhere and is supported by the Hawaii Soto Mission Association. Thank you, Dharma Keiki family and friends. Our next presentation will be offered by members of the Kona Hongwanji Buddhist Temple Sangha. They will be singing the gatha, Living Gratefully, which will be accompanied by ukulele strumming.
So as we get set up, we want to just share this song with you, this gatha with you, that was written by one of our Sangha members from Oahu, and living gratefully. We're grateful that we're here together as one Sangha of different traditions. We're grateful that we have the Buddha Dharma as our guide. We are grateful to be within the embrace of wisdom and compassion. We are grateful to be able to share the Dharma with others, especially in this time of chaos and darkness in our world. We should live gratefully, sharing the light of the Buddha's teachings with all.
Let's all live in harmony, trying to live as one. All of us together, always, living life with Buddha's love. Hand in hand we move along, let's all live in peace. Strive to be the best we can, living gratefully. Kindness to every living thing, showing our gratitude. Loving all our friends and family, showing thanks for all they do. Hand in hand we move along, let's all live in peace. Strive to be the best we can, living gratefully. Nice job, Konohongwanji Sangha. Thank you who all participated in the wonderful presentations and the Sangha for your participation. Bishop Clark Watanabe of Koyasan Shingon Mission of Hawaii will lead us in the unison reading of the Metta Sutta. Words can be found in the program and on the screen. Please join him in reciting the words out loud.
Metta Sutta. May all beings be happy. May they be joyous and live in safety. all living beings, whether weak or strong, in high or middle or low of existence, small or great, visible or invisible, near or far, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another nor despise any beings in any state. Let none by anger or hatred wish harm to another, even as a mother at the risk of her life watches over and protects her only child. So with a boundless mind should one cherish all living beings of, over the world, above, below, and all around, without limit. So let each cultivate an infinite goodwill towards the whole world.
Thank you, Bishop Watanabe. Now, Mr. Terry Terada, President of Konohongoji Buddhist Temple, will offer acknowledgments for today's celebration.
As this Buddha Day service comes to a close, we offer our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who made this gathering possible. To the HAIB Planning Committee, both the Hawaii Island Chapter and the Hawaii Association of International Buddhist State Organization, for your dedication in planning and coordinating this special day. To our guest speaker, Reverend Paul Ananda Normann, for traveling to Kona to share his inspiring message with us. To the ministers and representatives from the various participating sanghas who have joined us from temples across Hawaii Island. To the incredible MCs, Brenda Gallardo and Darcy Asakura, and to our talented organist, Lorraine Tanimoto, whose beautiful playing enhanced the voices of our songbirds here and on Zoom. Her music brought to life the spirit of the Gatha, softly blew the breezes, where we sang in harmony with the birds in nature's chorus. We're also grateful to everyone who participated in the wonderful group presentations. To the Kona Honganji Junior YBA for creating this beautiful hanamido, and to all those who generously donated flowers. This stunning floral display would not have been possible without your shared offerings from your gardens, a true reflection of Lumbini's garden. To the members of special guests who will be performing for us during the refreshment hour in the social hall. To Reverend Blaine Higa and the Kona Honganji Buddhist Temple for hosting this event and providing the essential tech support, allowing those unable to attend in person to still be a part of this celebration. To the many volunteers who contributed their time, energy, and aloha, as well as everyone who brought refreshments to share during our fellowship after the service. Mahalo for your generous donations to HAIB and the neighborhood place of Puna. And finally, our deepest gratitude to all of you, whether here in person or joining us on Zoom. Your presence has made this celebration of the Buddha's birthday truly special. We could not have done it without you.
Thank you, Uncle Terry.
This concludes the 13th Annual Hawaii Association of International Buddhist Buddha Day celebration. Thank you so much for joining us in person and virtually to celebrate the birth of Shakyamuni Buddha, who brought light and peace to our world, which is so very needed globally today. If you enjoyed this event, please consider becoming a member of HAIB. Membership forms are available on the table at the temple entrance and also on HAIB's website. Please visit their website at hawaiibuddhists.org for more information about HAIB and its programs and membership. The link is also shown on your screen. With your membership, HAIB can continue to thrive. Everyone is welcome to join.
I would like to call upon Reverend Blaine to lead us in the closing reflection.
So please join me in Gasho. As we celebrate the wondrous birth of Siddhartha Gautama, the one who had become the Buddha, the awakened one, we rededicate ourselves to following the path of universal liberation, spiritual awakening, and joyful peace that he shared. We rejoice in receiving the life-giving and life-transforming Dharma over 2,600 years since his birth, as it offers us wise hope and courage for living in these troubled and dark times. Let us endeavor to listen to the Buddha Dharma with not just our ears, but with our entire being, and strive to embody the teachings in our thoughts, through our words, and by our actions. May we always take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows us the way in this life, the Dharma, the way of understanding and love, and the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Namu Shakyamuni Butsu. Namu Shakyamuni Butsu. Namu Shakyamuni Butsu.
Thank you, Reverend Blaine. Although this service is now over, the celebration continues in the adjoining social hall. The band, called Special Guests, led by Miles Ukumura of Honaka'a Hongwanji Mission, will be entertaining us with a few numbers. Lyrics to his song are in the program. Also, Rochelle Tagawa, Sangha member of Konohongwanji Buddhist Temple, will be conducting a fun intergenerational activity for anyone wishing to participate. And of course, yummy refreshments will be available for all to enjoy.
As this service comes to a conclusion, we wish to extend a sincere mahalo to everyone for your generous donations, as well as your in-person and online attendance. For those of you on Zoom, may leave at any time.
Those of you here in person, please do not leave yet, and let's walk over to the social hall for fellowship, entertainment, and goodies. Again, happy Buddha Day, everyone, and please take care.
Could we have the, for the ministers and the representatives of the different temples, please come up and we'll take a picture taking. So, everybody else, please join us in the social hall for refreshments and fellowship.